For more on the two sessions, I'm joined by Xu Qinduo. He's a political analyst with China Radio International. Qinduo, great to see you there. We know the revision of the Chinese constitution has more than 20 items there, but in the Western world, people primarily focus on one thing. Of course, that is the removal of the term limits. What actually came out of this year's two sessions and the constitutional amendments in particular?
Well, if you look at the, a concern from Western media, the abolishing of the term limit, I think if you look at the response from the business community, the response is actually very positive. Because it doesn't make sense. China is at a critical time in transforming its economic growth model from heavily relying on investment and export to one that's driven by consumption and services industry. So it faces the challenges both inside of the country and externally. So it's a crucial time, and to maintain stability and this sustainability, and then there's a removal of term limit. It does make some sense, and politically, I think that's where the people's concern is from. But if you look at China, China is still on the way to explore a political model that's suitable for the Chinese situation, for the Chinese culture, Chinese tradition. Obviously, it's not copying the Western model, but there's no model to copy. Basically, China is a socialist country and is one of the 5 socialist countries leading in the leading position of all the socialist countries. But what kind of the model that will best suit a country like China? I think that's the removal of the term limit or the constitutional amendment is a part of that efforts to explore.
Sure, Deng Xiaoping's famous quote, crossing the river by feeding the stones, comes to mind. Well, let's talk about institutional reform. This is said to be China's largest bureaucratic overhaul in decades. How significant is this round of institutional reform?
It's, as I mentioned earlier, this is a crucial time for China to, if you look at the experience of the past management of the CPC of the party and also the Chinese government over the past 40 years of reform and opening up, one thing, one of the striking features of the Communist Party of China is its ability to adapt to the new situation. And China obviously is entering the new era with the new challenges, and domestically and from overseas. So you do need a new government formality, let's say, new institutions to deal with the issues. For example, people are talking about so-called like a super ministry for environmental protection. They changed the name into ecological environmental protection. That gives its power not only to map out new policies, but also to make sure those policies will be well implemented. So obviously, environmental protection is one of the highest priorities for the Xi Jinping government over here. And also the new body of the National Supervisory Institution here, a commission. So this is fighting corruption will continue to be one of the top priorities of the country. And also you are going to see the banking and other basically functions will be combined. So you will see a strengthening regulatory commission over there to oversee the financial sector in order to prevent so-called financial risks in the coming 5 years. So all these reflects the priorities of the government, the priorities of China as a country in the next 5 to 10 years.
Xu Qinduo from China Radio International, thanks so much for your insight.